She dated my son's bully, so I pulled her college funding. I'm the kind of guy who believes in helping family where I can. I work hard, make more than enough to live comfortably, and I've always told my siblings and their kids, if they need something and I can provide it, I will. But I also believe in one unshakable rule. You never turn your back on the people who were there for you during your darkest moments. That rule has guided a lot of my choices in life, especially when it comes to my son, Shaun, 18M. Shaun is my oldest. He's always been bright and kind and a little quieter than the other kids, but I never thought anything of it. When he was 13, though, everything changed. That's the age when kids start getting a little mean. But what Shaun went through wasn't just teasing. It wasn't kids being kids. It was cruel, targeted, and relentless. It started with names, slurs, actually, because Shaun is gay. That alone was hard for him to navigate, especially in a town where not everyone was as accepting as they like to pretend they are. But the bullying escalated fast. The other boys in his grade, especially one kid named Derek, made Shaun's life a living nightmare. They cyberbullied him. They mocked every post he made online, spreading rumors that left him isolated at school. And then came the day I'll never forget. Derek and a few of his friends cornered Shaun behind the school gym and beat him so badly that when I saw him at the hospital, I nearly passed out. His face was swollen, bloodied, barely recognizable. The doctors had to keep him. Overnight, I tried everything to get the school to take action. I went to the principal. I called the school board. I even threatened to go to the police, but they dismissed it, said it was roughhousing gone too far. Just boys being boys. That line still makes my blood boil. What they didn't see was the aftermath. My son didn't want to go back to school. For 4 whole months, he couldn't get out of bed without shaking. He was withdrawn, terrified, angry. We had to pull him out and homeschool him for a while. And one night, he almost took his own life. That's a sentence no parent ever wants to say, but it's the truth. He was seconds away when my wife walked into his room. I don't like imagining what would have happened if she hadn't. Since then, we've done everything we could to get him help. Therapy, new schools, a fresh start. We moved to a new town just so he'd never have to walk the same hallways where his pain lived. And slowly, bit by bit, Shaun started to recover. He's still quiet, but now it's more out of caution than fear. He's learning to be proud of who he is again. He has a small group of friends and even a boyfriend he trusts. He's working toward a future, something I didn't know he'd ever want again. So yeah, I hold a grudge. Not out of spite, out of protection. I saw what that boy went through. I lived it right alongside him. And I told myself that I would never let anything threaten his peace again, especially not someone who helped take it away in the first place. Now here's where things get complicated. My niece, Emily, 17F, is my sister's only daughter. She's always been a good kid, smart, driven, respectful. I've helped her out here and there over the years. Birthday gifts, Christmas surprises, even pitched in for her high school trip abroad last year. She's never given me a reason to doubt her character, and I've always treated her like one of my own. A few months back, she started talking about college. She got accepted into a great school, private, out of state, and expensive as hell. Her mom, my sister, works hard but doesn't exactly have a college fund tucked away. So when Emily came to me and asked if I could help with tuition, I didn't hesitate. I told her yes. I told her I'd cover the cost for at least her first couple of years, maybe more if she kept her grades up. She was over the moon, hugged me so tight I nearly lost my breath. My sister cried. It was one of those moments where you feel good. Like, you've done something that'll actually make a difference in someone's life. My wife was on board. Shaun was supportive too. He always liked Emily. They were never particularly close. She's younger and they lived in different cities most of their lives, but there was a quiet fondness there. I think, in a way, Shaun saw her as one of the few family members who didn't treat him differently when he came out. She never made weird comments, never acted awkward. She was just normal, like a cousin should be. I'll be honest, saying yes to paying for her college felt like the kind of thing good families do. We all go through stuff, right? So if I've got the means to help someone else climb a little higher, I do it. No strings attached, no guilt trip. Just support. At least that's what I thought. Until this 4th of July. Every year we head back to our hometown for the 4th of July. It's tradition. The fireworks, the BBQs, the overcrowded lawn chairs. Same thing every summer. We stay at my sister's house, catch up with the rest of the family, let the kids run around like they used to. Even after we moved away, we kept coming back for the sake of family. And this year seemed no different. At first, we got in the day before the holiday and were helping set things up in the backyard. Grill was going, kids were messing around with sparklers, and my wife and I were hauling out the folding tables. Everything was calm, normal. Then Emily walks in, with someone behind her. He was tall, broad-shouldered, short brown hair. There was something about his walk that made the hairs on my neck stand up, and the second I saw his face, my heart stopped. I'd know that face anywhere. The smug grin had been replaced with something more muted, more careful. But it was still him, Derek. I hadn't seen him in years, not since the day Shaun came home bleeding and broken. But I remembered. My brain took a snapshot of his face all those years ago, and seeing it now hit me like a punch to the chest. He looked right at me, and I saw the recognition hit him too. His smile faltered. His posture stiffened. He nodded. Politely, then quietly made an excuse to leave. Something about needing to grab something from his car. He didn't come back. And honestly, that told me everything I needed to know. He knew who I was. He knew what he did. And the fact that he couldn't even look me in the eye without bailing, that wasn't the behavior of someone changed. That was guilt. That was shame. After he left, I pulled Emily aside. I kept my voice low but firm. I asked her, what the hell was she thinking bringing that boy here? Bringing him to this house, knowing what he did to Shaun? Did she really think we'd all just smile and break bread with him? She blinked at me like I'd just spoken another language. She said, Uncle, it happened years ago. He's not like that anymore. He's changed. Like that made it okay. Like Derek had just pushed Shaun on the playground or stole his lunch money. I stood there, stunned. Before I could even respond, my sister came over and tried to defuse it. She told Emily it probably wasn't a good idea to bring Derek, especially without warning. But Emily doubled down. She said she had every right to bring her boyfriend to meet the family. Then she said something that made my wife gasp out loud. If Shaun's still not over it, that's on him. It's not Derek's fault anymore. Swear the air got sucked out of the backyard in that moment. My wife called her a heartless little bitch. Loudly. Then turned around and left, grabbing Shaun and our other kids without another word. I stayed behind for a few seconds, just looking at Emily, trying to process what I was hearing. That's when I said it. Calm, cold. If Derek's changed so much, then he can pay for your college. Then I walked out. We didn't go back to my sister's house after that. My wife had already packed up the essentials and booked a hotel by the time I got to the car. Shaun was sitting in the back seat, staring out the window, not saying a word. And that silence? That crushed me more than anything. He didn't cry. He didn't get angry. He just looked hollow. Like all the progress we'd made over the last few years was unraveling with one unexpected reunion. The hotel was nice enough, and we tried to make the most of it. Ordered room service, watched some dumb comedy movies, promised the kids we'd hit an amusement park the next day. But I couldn't shake the weight in my chest. Not from anger, from betrayal. That night, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. First it was my sister, then her husband, then cousins, even a couple of aunts I barely talked to anymore. All of them chiming in with the same message, that I had gone too far. Emily's just a kid. Derek was a troubled teen, but he's grown. You can't punish a girl's education over something that happened 5 years ago. He's different now. He's not the same boy who hurt Shaun. Different, changed, redeemed, funny. How people are so quick to forgive when it's not their child who is bleeding on the sidewalk. When it wasn't their home that felt like a war zone for years because of what one group of boys did. When it wasn't their son lying in a hospital bed, his face barely recognizable, his spirit completely shattered. I ignored every message. Didn't respond to a single one. Not because I didn't have anything to say, but because I knew if I opened my mouth, I might not stop. The kind of rage I felt didn't belong in a group chat. It would have exploded like fireworks, and there would be no coming back from it. The next morning, I got a voicemail from my sister. She sounded calmer, controlled even, said she didn't agree with what Emily did, but begged me not to ruin her daughter's future. She told me the college deposit was due in 2 weeks and Emily didn't have a backup plan. Then she said something that hit me like a slap in the face. She's just in love. You of all people should understand that. That's when I realized something. To them, this wasn't about Shaun. It wasn't about what happened. It was about convenience, keeping the peace, maintaining the illusion that everything was okay. And my refusal to play along made me the villain in their story. Not Derek, not Emily, me. For the next few days, I couldn't stop replaying everything in my head. The bruises on Shaun's face, his trembling hands when he told us he didn't want to live anymore. The late nights when my wife and I took turns sitting outside his bedroom door just in case. And now somehow I was the bad guy. Because I'd refused to reward someone who knowingly brought Shaun's tormentor into our family gathering and then had the nerve to say, if he's not over it, that's his problem. I kept wondering, had I overreacted? Was I really wrong to withdraw my support? To break a promise I made out of love and goodwill because someone shattered that goodwill with a single selfish act? Then I'd look at Shaun, at how quiet he'd gotten again, the way he'd stopped laughing at his little sister's jokes, how his posture had gone back to that curled, defensive hunch he used to carry like armor, and I knew the answer. No, hadn't overreacted. I'd simply reacted. People talk a lot about forgiveness, and I'm not against it, but forgiveness doesn't mean pretending nothing happened. It doesn't mean shaking hands with the boy who damn near broke your son's spirit just because it makes everyone else more comfortable. And it sure as hell doesn't mean funding a future for someone who shows no regard for the trauma she's chosen to invite back into our lives. Let's get something straight. I didn't punish Emily because she's dating someone I don't like. I pulled back because of who she brought, how she brought him, and what she said afterward. There was no apology, no concern for Shaun, no attempt to even ask if he was okay. Just, he's changed. Just, it was years ago. Just, get over it. That wasn't love. That was disregard. And if she could disregard what happened to Shaun, If she could look her cousin in the eye and decide the boy who almost drove him to suicide was worth the trade, then she could find someone else to help her through college. Maybe that changed boyfriend of hers would step up. Maybe he'd finally learn what responsibility really looks like. The truth is, I didn't write this to make people pat me on the back. I wrote it because part of me genuinely needed to. No, am I the asshole here? I'm a man of my word. I don't break promises unless something shatters the foundation beneath them. And when I made that promise to Emily, to pay for her college, it was built on trust. On the belief that she respected my family, that she loved her cousin, that she understood what we'd been through even if she hadn't lived it firsthand. But that illusion crumbled the moment she brought Derek into our space and tried to act. Like his past didn't matter. Like Shaun's pain had an expiration date. Like the years we spent putting our son back together were just an inconvenient footnote in her summer romance. And now the family is divided. My sister says I'm punishing her daughter over high school drama. My brother-in-law says it's been too long and I need to let go. A couple of relatives even had the audacity to suggest that Shaun must be milking it if he's still hurt after all this time. But I keep coming back to one moment. The day Shaun finally smiled again, really smiled for the first time after the attack. He was sitting at the kitchen table laughing at something stupid on his phone, and for one fragile, beautiful second, he looked like a teenager again. Not a victim, not a shell, just a kid. And I remember thinking, we made it. We got him back. So, no, I won't risk losing that again. Not for a niece who can't see past her boyfriend's fake charm. Not for a family that values appearances over accountability. And not for anyone who dares to minimize what my son went through. I didn't cut Emily off out of cruelty. I did it to protect my child. Because here's the thing. People love to talk about forgiveness when they're not the ones who were hurt. They love to lecture about moving on when they never had to pick up the broken pieces. But until they've stood where I've stood, until they've watched someone they love nearly disappear under the weight of someone else's hate, they don't get to tell me how to parent or how to feel. So, am I the asshole? Maybe to some I am, but to my son, I'm just a father who finally said, enough.
You've heard the case. While you consider your verdict, the court calls the next case to order.
She dated my son's bully, so I pulled her college funding. Local scam gone global, they messed with the wrong. You never expect something minor, like an outdated inspection sticker, to spiral into an international incident, especially involving corrupt local cops. But that's exactly what happened. To me when I was stationed overseas with the US military, I learned firsthand just how quickly a petty local scam could blow up into a major international mess. The area where I was stationed wasn't exactly prosperous. Poverty was widespread, petty crime was common, and local authorities weren't above bending rules for profit. It seemed like every corner had its own scheme, and the locals had become experts at exploiting loopholes in the system, often with the police's silent endorsement. What began as a minor inconvenience quickly turned into a crisis when these corrupt local cops chose the wrong target. Me. Little did they know, their usual victim wasn't supposed to be someone connected directly to the United States government, and when they took my family's passports, things escalated beyond their wildest imagination. It all started with a shady little racket that was apparently totally normal where I was stationed. Here's how it worked. The local police had a system where they incentivized people, panhandlers, petty thieves, or just about anyone with too much time and too little conscience, to report vehicles with expired or fake inspection stickers. These informants were even given access to the inspection database, and some were known to abuse that access. They'd either spot what they thought was a fake sticker, or more often, just pick a random target, break into the vehicle, clean it out, and leave a helpful little note saying the items were turned in to the local police station. The car owner would have to show up in person, pay a fine for the supposedly expired sticker, and then be given a strict deadline to fix the inspection or face additional penalties. And yeah, this wasn't a rare thing. It was so well known among foreigners and expats that one of the first things they told you when in processing on base, especially if you drove a motorcycle, was to never leave your inspection sticker on the actual bike. If you did, it'd be peeled off within a day. You were told to keep it in your wallet instead. This wasn't just some fringe thing happening in dark alleys. This was a semi-official racket, enabled by the very people who were supposed to be upholding the law. Everyone in the area seemed to have accepted it as part of life. Until, of course, they messed with someone who wasn't going to roll over quietly, and that someone happened to be me. That day started like any other. Until it didn't. I walked out to my car in the morning, already running late for work, and saw something that made my stomach drop. A folded slip of paper sitting on the driver's seat. My heart sank further when I saw my glove box hanging open. The note, written in stiff English, claimed that my car had a fake inspection sticker and that all of my belongings had been turned over to the local police station. To make matters worse, I wasn't the only one affected. My daughter was with me, backpack in hand, ready for school. There was no school bus for her. We relied on my car every single morning. So not only was I going to be late for work, now she was going to be late for school too. And let me be very clear. My inspection sticker was completely valid, up to date, no tampering, So what the hell were they even talking about? Then I remembered what was inside the glove box. That's when the panic really hit. The night before, I had put our passports, mine, my wife's, and my kids', into the glove box. I needed them for some paperwork we were planning to do at the base. My wife's passport was expired and we had plans to update her application. Knowing how forgetful I can be, I'd prepped everything the night before, made sure the car was locked, and told myself I'd grab them first thing in the morning. That mistake haunted me instantly. The idea that some low-level informant, or worse, a dirty cop, was now in possession of 3 U.S. passports made me feel physically sick. I didn't know what kind of trouble that could cause, but I knew I had to get them back immediately. So I dropped everything and drove straight to the police station. The ride to the station was a blur. My brain kept racing through worst-case scenarios. I had no idea what the local laws were when it came to stolen foreign passports, or if the people involved even realized the value of what they'd taken. All I knew was that I needed those documents back. Fast. If they were lost, it could spiral into a bureaucratic nightmare. If they were misused, it could be something even worse. When I walked into the station, I tried to stay calm. I explained what had happened and asked why my vehicle had been flagged when my inspection sticker was valid. One of the officers, who barely looked up from his desk, said it was likely a mistake and that it happens sometimes. He pulled out a plastic bin filled with miscellaneous items and gestured toward it. "Your belongings are there," he muttered, began sifting through the contents. There was my phone charger, some pens, my kid's school folder, a bunch of glove box junk, but only 2 passports. My wife's passport was missing. I turned back to the officer and said flatly, "One of the passports is gone." He just shrugged. "Whatever is there is what was turned in." "No," I told him. "I need a police report. A passport was stolen and I have to report it to the U.S. Embassy. That's an official document and this police station knows who took it because they dropped everything off this morning." That was the moment the officer's entire demeanor changed. His eyes shot up. His tone shifted from dismissive to cautious. He tried to talk me out of it, saying there was no need to escalate things. I stood firm. I wasn't asking. I was making it very clear that this was no longer a missing wallet or a glove box break-in. This was a case of stolen international identification, and now it was on record. The more I insisted on filing the police report, the more visibly uncomfortable the officer became. He started backtracking, suddenly claiming that maybe the missing passport was still in the evidence room and they just missed it. But it was too late for backpedaling. I had already made it clear that I was contacting the U.S. Embassy either way. "You understand this is a serious issue, right?" I said. "This isn't a missing receipt, this is a stolen federal document. I need a report and I need names." He froze for a second, clearly calculating what to do next. Then he got up without a word and left the room. When he returned, he had another officer with him. Someone clearly more senior. This second cop tried to smooth things over, telling me the department would look into it internally and make things right if anything had gone wrong. I didn't budge. "I'm filing the report and I'm notifying the embassy. If you won't help, I'll note that in my statement too." At that point, they reluctantly allowed me to fill out the paperwork. They didn't offer a copy, but I demanded one. I got it stamped, took photos of it with my phone, and emailed it to the embassy the moment I stepped outside. It was out of their hands now, and into the hands of someone with far more authority than a crooked local cop. By the time I made it back to base, the embassy had already responded. They didn't treat this like a routine report. They were immediately interested in the police station, the time of the theft, and whether I had the name of the person who turned in the passports. I gave them everything, scanned the police report, described the officer's behavior, and even attached a photo of the note left in my car. Within an hour, a consular officer called me directly. She confirmed what I'd suspected. Stealing or mishandling U.S. passports, even abroad, is a serious offense. The fact that they'd been in the possession of someone operating in concert with local law enforcement made it worse. If the passport was misused or even just improperly handled, it could trigger international consequences. I didn't have to wait long to find out what happened next, American. Within a few days, word made its way back to me. Unofficially, of course. The man who broke into my car was arrested. The same guy who probably thought he was untouchable because he worked hand-in-hand with the cops was now facing actual legal charges. Apparently, the embassy had applied pressure through the appropriate diplomatic channels, and the local authorities didn't want that kind of spotlight on their little operation. What sealed his fate wasn't just the break-in or even the stolen items, it was the passport. Tampering with foreign identification documents, especially American ones, had crossed a line that their usual game didn't account for. I wasn't there when they arrested him, but I wish I could have seen the look on his face when the same cops who probably used to pay him turned up at his door with handcuffs. The fallout was swift and brutal, at least by the standards of the quiet, back-alley corruption that had been thriving unchecked. The guy who broke into my car wasn't just slapped on the wrist. From what I gathered, he was fined, charged, and possibly facing additional legal trouble for being in possession of stolen international documents. No one said it outright, but it was pretty clear that the police department wanted this problem to disappear quietly. They couldn't afford to let it spiral into a larger scandal with American authorities involved. And the best part? The embassy reissued my wife's passport for free. They didn't even hesitate. In their words, "You did the right thing reporting it." They thanked me for the documentation, especially the police report and the photo evidence, and assured me they were handling it from there. It felt good. Not in a vengeful way, but in a righteous way. For once, a scam artist and a corrupt system didn't win. Someone actually had to face the consequences of treating law-abiding people like easy targets. That feeling of helplessness when I first saw the note in my car, it was gone. Replaced by something much better, the knowledge that standing your ground and doing the right thing, even in a foreign country, can actually make a difference. After that, everything went back to normal. Well, mostly. I didn't have any more run-ins with shady sticker enforcement. No mysterious notes on my windshield. No random break-ins. It's like word got around that I wasn't the kind of target they wanted to mess with again. More importantly, I left with a sense of closure. Not just because my family's documents were restored or that the embassy had my back, but because someone who thought they were above the law actually got held accountable. Some people online later criticized me, said I went out of my way to get someone in serious trouble over a minor offense. But here's the thing. Breaking into someone's locked car, stealing passports, and playing games with people's safety and identity, that's not minor. That's not just a scam. That's personal. I don't feel bad at all. Not even a little. If anything, I hope that guy learned something from it. Maybe next time he'll think twice before trying to shake down the wrong person. Maybe he'll remember what it felt like when the system he thought was protecting him suddenly turned on him instead. And as for me, I finished my time overseas without another issue. A few months later, I PCS'd home, passport renewed, lesson learned, and with one hell of a story to tell.
The case has been heard. The stories have been told. Now it's your turn to judge. Leave your verdict in the comments. Like, share, and subscribe. The Court of Stories is always in session.